joining us from the MMQB right now with the NFL, just news of popping. Albert Breer joining us here once again on the program. How you doing, Albert?
Did I get you at a bad time? I like when I left the house, Michigan was up by like 15 or something.
No, it's now. Yeah, you got me at a bad time. You got me at a bad time right now. But it's a good time in terms of talking about the National Football League. Let's get into it here, Albert. What happened with the Colts and Wentz? I mean, Week 15, Saturday Night Football. They crushed it against New England, which had a furious comeback, fall short. But Indianapolis looked like what the Niners looked like at the end of the season and into the playoffs, the proverbial team nobody wanted to face. And now it's just like, Wentz, you can't even say fell out of favor. There was no favor. There was nothing.
Right? Well, I think there are two pieces to this, Rich. And, I think Frank Reich is sort of a neutral party here because he does have the close relationship with Wentz. I think the key figures are Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay. I think from Ballard's standpoint, it wasn't so much about the way Carson played over the course of 17 games because, it wasn't great, but, I think you could kind of justify some of it. And, a lot of the stuff the Colts said before the year, which was if we're really good around him, he'll be fine, came true. Now, at the end of the year, when they had to put a lot on his shoulders, he wound up falling short. But I think they were sort of prepared for that, right? When Jonathan Taylor was making his MVP run, Wentz was, again, not great, but he was fine. I think for Ballard, this was more about the guy you want leading your room, right? And kind of whether or not that guy, you can envision him being like the battleship commander for your organization going forward. And I think Chris Ballard discovered a lot of the stuff that the Eagles knew when they traded him to Indy, which was he's not really that guy, and he doesn't relate great with teammates. And when things aren't good, is he accountable? Can we count on him when things are really tough, when we got to put the team on his shoulders? How is he, beyond just how he plays, how is he going to react to that emotionally? And so I think that the makeup part of it was what Ballard had misgivings on. Now, with Irsay, I think this is more about a sense of urgency with the core that they've built. And you look at it, they've done a really nice job over the last 5 years putting something around whoever the quarterback's going to be. And remember, this is all meant for Andrew Luck, right? But Quentin Nelson, Darius Leonard, Julian Blackmon, who will come back off of injury, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman. We're talking about, guys who are, kind of in the wheelhouse now. This core, this should be when this group is winning, and I think that is part of Irsay's frustration now is 3 years after, or 2.5 years after Andrew Luck retired, the rest of the team is coming of age as they'd really wanted it to, and yet the quarterback position is still a mess. And I think the owner sort of looked at it as what we've got isn't good enough, and I think it's fair to look at it that way. So to me, as much as anything else, this is about the makeup of the player, the makeup of Carson Wentz, and whether or not that was what they wanted to build around, and then B, the sense of urgency they really have to have with the core group that they've built over the last 5 years.
So if the Colts learned this the hard way, if you will, and the Eagles learned it the hard way, then why are the Washington Commanders, after saying they're going to, they're going to go YOLO and knock on everybody's door, why do they go in this direction? Why do they do
because
this?
They're out of answers. Look, realistically, so they made a real pitch. Russell Wilson. They offered 3 first-round picks there. They would have taken a swing at Aaron Rodgers if Aaron Rodgers had ever become available. And then the third quarterback that's a big name here, Deshaun Watson. They like him, but I think for obvious reasons, this was sort of going to be a non-starter for them because of everything that their organization has gone through over the last 2 years. And the workplace stuff and everything else, unless there was full and complete settlement of all of the legal stuff, not just the criminal part, all of the legal stuff, Watson was going to be a non-starter for them. So that left them on the second tier. And I think with any of the quarterbacks, whether it was Garoppolo, Wentz, whoever else, I think the way that they looked at it was, if we do that, it's probably going to be multiple swings. And so I think the way you want to look at Wentz now is, Do they think they can get a little more out of him? Yeah, because Wentz has always been a really good downfield thrower. Has he ever had a guy quite like Terry McLaurin? Maybe not. So, maybe there's something there. At the very least, they're bringing in a guy who started a lot of games, who's seen a lot of things, and I don't think they're done at quarterback. My guess would be they'll look very, very hard at the idea of drafting one in the first round. Now, I think what you can say, because of the money, is they're probably not going to take a swing on another veteran quarterback. But I think the idea they could take one in the first round of the draft is very much still alive.
So what's the Colts' plan at quarterback? What's that?
That's the big mystery here. I mean, I saw, obviously our friend Ian mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo the other day. I know Florio mentioned Kirk Cousins. I'd be stunned if Chris Ballard didn't pick up the phone and call Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler about Derek Carr. I mean, maybe he asks them if there's something creative that could happen with Derek Carr going to Indy and maybe Jimmy Garoppolo going to Vegas. They have to think outside the box like that, and I don't know what the answer is because, you were in Indianapolis for a week with the rest of us. You know what the league thinks of this quarterback class coming in, and they don't have a first-round pick to begin with. So, that's always been my thing with the Wentz thing with them, Rich, is it sounds good, but then what? And I think they're still sorting through the then what part of the equation. Short of the Texans being willing to trade Deshaun Watson in the division, which I don't think they will, what else is there for you out there? I'm not sure. And again, Chris Ballard's good at this, and maybe he's got a rabbit he's getting ready to pull out of his hat. But I do think they're going to have to look at this creatively because obviously right now they don't have a whole lot at the position.
Right, and certainly not enough to get Watson. You could even make the case that if Watson does become viable in any way, shape, or form, that Seattle, what it just got from Denver, might not even be enough for Watson. Right. So, and you could basically say that what you just saw for Wilson would be somewhere in that neighborhood of what it would take to get Derek Carr, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I even take it to Wentz, Rich. I thought when we started hearing about Wentz, I honestly thought a month ago, is this going to be a Brock Osweiler salary dump? You know what I mean? I just didn't think that the Colts would be able to find somebody to take on the money. Forget the rest of it. You know what I mean? And so, the fact that Wentz brought that home, John Lynch has to feel pretty good about where he's at with Jimmy Garoppolo. You know what I mean? Even though Garoppolo is coming back from shoulder surgery. And, then if Derek Carr is worth, a 1 and a 3 or something like that, would that get the Raiders to think about it? And again, would that idea of a swap, all right, we'll send Carr off and then we'll bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, would that appeal to him? And I don't know that it would, because I do think that Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, I think they're being sincere when they say they really like Derek Carr. And it was really important for Josh to get off to the right foot, get that relationship off to the right foot with Derek Carr after what happened, when he started in Denver. But if you're thinking creatively about this, that's the way you have to start thinking if you're Chris Ballard, because there isn't an easy answer out there. Again, short of maybe the Texans being willing to trade him in division, and even if the Texans were willing to do that, you don't have a first round pick to deal to them. So I think it's a tricky spot for the Colts to be in without question. And I'll tell you this, Rich, that ghost of Andrew Luck seems to be continuing to haunt Indianapolis.
I've got Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. So we had Andrew Brandt on in hour number 1, colleague of yours. And he's like, I need to see the contract before I believe Aaron Rodgers is attached at the Packers' hip for the rest of his career, that this might just be essentially a cap-clearing solution to him running it back one more time with Devontae Adams for him to get to his free, walk, if you will, year that he negotiated to come back last year. What do you think?
Well, the one thing I had heard was that there were, and I know, there was the idea out there that this would be a 4-year deal. I heard it was 4 new years. And that's interesting to me because if it's 4 new years, that means it's a 5-year deal,
right?
Essentially. And that number is the magic number. 5 years is the max that you can spread that bonus money out over, right? So that's being done for a reason. And a lot of times, like those 5-year deals will have phony years in the back end. So, when I heard that it wasn't a 4-year deal, it was a 4-year extension, like that popped in my head. Okay, like are there phony years in the back end that are designed to spread the cap hit out? I think it's Aaron's intention to finish his career in Green Bay. I don't have any reason to think otherwise. I think he's got an appreciation for the guys he plays with and all the rest of it. Like, I think this is a big – I mean, to me, like, this is happening because of Aaron Rodgers' relationships, because he felt as strongly about the people in that locker room as he has at any point in his career. He fixed his relationships with Gutekunst and Murphy, and his relationship's always been good with LaFleur. But, like, if there are those, phony years in the back of his deal, then, yeah, you would have to think about it. And, hey, if I'm the Packers, here's the other part of it. Like, Tampa did that with a bunch of contracts to create a 2-year window with Tom Brady. Wouldn't you say they would say it was worth it now?
Oh, yeah.
Like, even if they have to tear it down, they won a championship. So, like, if this means creating a 2 or a 3-year window with Aaron Rodgers and maybe he walks after that, like, if I'm the Packers, that's 100% worth it to go and chase another championship when you haven't won one in, 12 years now? It's been 12 years since they won that first one with Aaron Rodgers.
Wow. So you think we're back in, like, the story of the new league year of 2023 is going to be where Rodgers' free agency tour goes?
I'm not saying that. I don't think so. No, I mean, like, I have no, like, I've heard nowhere that, like, this is like the precursor to Rodgers saying goodbye again. But I mean, you can look at their roster, you know what I mean? Like, and say, like, yeah, like, there's a very real 2-year window. You can look at David Bakhtiari's age and Devontae Adams' age, and you can look at, like, how that's a really great football situation now. But 2-3 years down the line, it might look a little bit different based on how some of these contracts are built. And by the way, here's the other thing. I mean, these guys can always force their way out. I mean, that's the one thing that we're learning now, right? Like, Russell Wilson didn't really have to do anything. Like, he could just sit on his hands and let it happen. That's becoming more common now as quarterbacks sort of accumulate more power.
So, Albert Breer here, a few minutes left with him from Sports Illustrated right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So why did it have to happen in Seattle? What happened? Because Russ, again, that's the type of guy, homegrown, Walter Payton Man of the Year, go Hawks. I mean, and I would never have imagined as he's going through that ascension from, Pete Carroll, Seattle Seahawk, face of franchise to, he's gone before he's 34. So what happened?
I think it goes back to the last contract negotiation. And I think you can actually take it back to, do you remember the stories out there that and this is the year that Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen and Sam Darnold were in the draft. In 2018, that the Seahawks had explored trading Russell Wilson to Cleveland, and with the idea that they were going to, wind up with the number 1 overall pick and take one of the quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, like from what I've heard, that stuck with him, and that was part of the reason why the next year he had a no-trade clause negotiated into his contract, so he could control where he was going to go next. And I think all the way around, there was a feeling after that negotiation, because it was a difficult one, this is going to be the last contract he does in Seattle. Like, right? Like, this is going to be the last one, and we'll figure it out somewhere along the line. But let's try to make the most of it now, and then that's going to be that. And, I think because of some of the animosity that had built up over the years, you saw some of the back and forth last year. And this year was a little bit different in that, like, and I think Russell felt like this was going to be it for him. And he was content to say, like, let's just let this play out. And, I think over the last, I'd say, month or so, talks started to heat up. I think they've been talking to Denver since the beginning of February. And, it's just kind of built and built and built. And I think for the Seahawks, the main thing was you look at the roster, it's like, okay, if we know we've got no more than 2 years left with Russell Wilson because there's 2 years left on his deal, do we think we can get the roster back into a place where we can win fast enough that it's going to be worth it to keep him around, knowing that we're not going to give him another contract. And like I think you just look at that, and then you juxtapose it against the trade value, which if you've got a guy with 2 years left on his contract, he's more valuable than a guy with 1 year left on his contract and what you can get for him. And so I think for Seattle, it was everything that had built up over the years was just it was all right. Like now is the time. Now is when it makes sense. The same way Detroit traded Stafford last year with 2 years left on his deal. And then I think Russell really wanted to go to a place where everything was built around him, and it was going to be a very quarterback-centric operation because he never really had that in Seattle. And, Denver historically has done that. Go back to the years of John Elway, obviously with Peyton Manning. I think they're able to afford him sort of what he was looking for in that way. And in a lot of ways, Rich, what's really interesting about this is I think like the root of some of this was like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson last year looking over at Tampa and looking at what Tom Brady had there and said, like, give me that. And I think Aaron Rodgers has sort of been able to leverage his way into having that without having to leave Green Bay. And now I think Russell Wilson's got it in Denver.
Yeah, I was kind of likening it to Roethlisberger and Carr having a different dynamic than Tomlin and Roethlisberger. That,
right.
That to Pete, Russ was always that kid who he drafted, or at least in Russ's mind, he was always, the kid that Pete drafted and nurtured, always compete, and he competed and he got in. And now Russ is going to be the OG that everybody went to go get for the new coach. What a totally different quarterback coaching dynamic for him, and it'll be fascinating to play out and see if it works, right?
Yeah, the context of it is important, and I think you nailed it. Like, it's, like all the history there, like the Legion of Boom, right? Like, and how there was friction between Russell and those guys, and Russell's place in the organization, and how Russell thought things should be run versus how Pete thought things should be run. Like, and I think those guys are going to look back on their years together fondly. Don't get me wrong here. I don't think this is like a hatred thing, but your history is your history, and I think like that history sort of weighed everyone down over the last couple of years. And so now the Seahawks get to go and rebuild the roster, and they got draft capital to do it. And Russell comes out of this, and again, like his entry point to Denver is so different than his entry point to Seattle. And, he arrives there sort of as the man. And, I think he arrives in sort of a partnership with George Payton and with Nathaniel Hackett. And those guys are still relatively new there too. And, he can, again, like be the guy who can help bring along a Jerry Jeudy, who can help maybe take Cortland Sutton to another level, who can maybe get more out of KJ Hamler, like all of that. And he can attract other guys in from the outside. And so like, I just think, like you said, like the context of the relationship between team and player is much different in this case, which I think is exactly what Russell was looking for.
Last thing for you, new Rich Eisen Show segment and a concept or idea that, like everything else born here, we just thought of on the spot. TB12 heat check on a scale of 0 to 12. 0 is, what's the line I've been using? Jello shots with Rita Moreno.
Yep,
okay,
correct.
Where he got not thinking at all about coming back. And 12 is he's definitely coming back. Where do you stand on that scale?
Yeah, so I'll be firmly on the fence. I'll say 7.
That's
That's where I'm at.
The reason why is like I don't think he knows how he's gonna feel in like June and July and August. And I think I've said this to you before, Rich, but it's a much different thing. Like asking a guy for a 12-month commitment, right? Like 12-month commitment to play football, which is what you'd be doing now, versus like a team coming to him in August and saying, can you do it for the next 5 months? Those are two different things. So it didn't surprise me if he didn't keep himself in shape. And I'll be interested to see if, there are TMZ photos, in May and June, and him working out at some high school and with his helmet on and everything else, because I do think, I don't know that like that thing in the back of his head, that he's not done. Like, I don't know that that's gone away yet.
Albert, thanks for the time. Greatly appreciate it. And just in time, Michigan blew a 13-point halftime lead and got bounced by Indiana. So Congratulations.
Oh, is it over?
It is indeed.
Are you guys out then? Do you think you make the tournament still or no?
Don't know, man. But it literally just ended, and thankfully, though, the handshake is going without incident, and that's the best part about it. So,
well, I'm sure you're happy to be talking to me at a time like this.
You know what, Albert? Good luck to you along the way. Thanks for the time. Greatly appreciate it, brother. Take care.
All right, thanks, Rich.
Good to see you at the Combine. That's Albert Breer here, everybody, on the Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.